The film begins in 1989, capturing the peak of high school glory. Mike O'Donnell, the school star athlete, is seen honing his skills on the basketball court. His talent hasn't gone unnoticed. Coach Murphy drops by to remind him that a scout will be in the bleachers for the big game tonight. For Mike, a college scholarship is essentially a done deal. When it's time for the official team photo, Mike shows his true character. He refuses to let the photographer start until Ned Gold, the team's water boy and Mike's best friend, is included. Ned arrives straight from a tabletop gaming session, still decked out in full wizard regalia. While the other players sneer at Ned's geeky interests, Mike shuts down the mockery and insists that Ned is a vital part of the team. However, the jocks can't help themselves. Just as the shutter snaps for the photo, one player pulls a prank by giving Ned a massive wedgie, capturing the chaos in the team's official memory forever. The energy in the gym is electric as the Hayden Warriors cheerleaders fire up the crowd. Ever the showman, Mike joins the performance, dancing and soaking in the adoration of his peers. Before tip-off, he spots his girlfriend, Scarlett, watching from the stands. Mike rushes to her, his excitement overflowing as he talks about the magnitude of the night, how this single game is the gateway to his scholarship and the perfect future they've planned. He even teases a special shooting pose he's dedicated to her, convinced this is the best night of his life. But the mood shifts instantly. Scarlett is distant, her eyes filled with a weight that Mike can't ignore. When he pushes her to speak, she drops a bombshell that shatters his focus. The whistle blows and the game begins, but the star player has checked out. Mike stands frozen at center court, dribbling the ball like a ghost, his mind 1,000 miles away. The crowd falls silent. The scout closes his notebook in confusion, and Coach Murphy shouts from the sidelines. But Mike hears nothing, until he catches a glimpse of Scarlett walking out of the gym, leaving it all behind. In a moment that changes the trajectory of his life, Mike tosses the ball blindly over his shoulder and sprints out of the gym. Behind him, the dream of a professional career vanishes as the scout definitively closes his notebook. Mike catches up to Scarlett in the hallway, insisting that he isn't going anywhere. When she protests that he's throwing away his entire future, Mike looks her in the eye and tells her that the baby is his future. They share a kiss, sealing a path that leads away from the bright lights of the basketball court. 20 years later, the reality of that choice has lost its luster. Mike wakes up on a couch in the home of his old friend, Ned Gold. Time has treated the two very differently. Ned is now a tech billionaire living in a mansion overflowing with high-end sci-fi and fantasy collectibles. He even greets the morning in full elf cosplay, prosthetic ears and all. Over breakfast, the grim details of Mike's current life emerge. His marriage to Scarlett has collapsed, she's kicked him out of the house, and they are in the middle of a messy divorce. To make matters worse, his teenage kids treat him like a total stranger. Ned, ever the loyal, if eccentric, sidekick, tries to spin the situation positively, but it's clear Mike is stuck in a midlife crisis, wondering exactly where his perfect future went wrong. Ned tries to find the silver lining in Mike's domestic disaster, but even a billionaire wizard has his limits. I guess it's mostly negative, isn't it? He admits, unable to spin the divorce and the kids' resentment into a win. Mike's only beacon of hope is his career. He spent 16 years climbing the ladder at a pharmaceutical company, and he's convinced a major promotion is finally within his grasp. At Wyatt Pharmaceuticals, Mike heads into a high-stakes meeting. His boss, Dean, enthusiastically introduces their latest product, a drug designed to provide a 4-hour erection. As Mike looks around the conference table, the corporate landscape feels increasingly alien. He's the only man in a room full of young, attractive women, a stark reminder that the glory days of 1989 are further away than ever. The tension in the room is palpable as Dean finally pivots to the promotion. Mike leans in, ready for his 16 years of loyalty to finally pay off, only for Dean to deliver a soul-crushing blow. "Mike, if you could just slide to your left so I can congratulate our new regional sales manager, Wendy." Stunned, Mike watches as the room erupts in celebration for a woman who has barely been with the company for 2 months. Once the cheers die down, Mike corners Dean, demanding an explanation. He lays out the facts. He has the seniority and the top sales numbers on the entire team. Dean's response is a masterclass in corporate gaslighting. He tells Mike he should actually take it as a compliment. His logic? Mike is so good at his current job that the company simply can't afford to move him out of it. Essentially, Mike has become too valuable to be successful, leaving him stuck in professional purgatory while the world passes him by. Dean's compliment is the final straw. He essentially tells Mike that he's too good at the grunt work to ever be the boss. When Dean dismissively turns his back to answer a call, Mike snaps. He rips the Bluetooth headset from Dean's ear and slams it against the wall in a rare burst of defiance. The victory is short-lived. A moment later, Mike is standing in front of the elevators clutching a cardboard box filled with his desk supplies. As the jubilant group of co-workers disappears behind the closing doors, the silence confirms it. Mike has been fired. With nowhere else to go, Mike drives back to the place where life still made sense, Hayden High School. He wanders into the darkened gym, standing on the same court where he once held the world in his hands. As he stares at the 1989 team photo in the trophy case, the one where Ned is getting a wedgie, an elderly janitor appears. The man doesn't just recognize Mike. He cuts right to the bone, remarking that Mike was the legendary star who had everything going for him, only to let it all slip away. It's a stinging reminder that, in the eyes of the world, Mike O'Donnell is nothing more than a could-have-been. The janitor's words carry a mysterious weight as he notes that people only return to this hallway to chase the ghosts of their glory days. When Mike wistfully admits that life really was better back then, the janitor offers a cryptic proposition. You want to do over? Thinking it's just a bit of nostalgic banter, Mike doesn't hesitate. Yeah, he breathes. The janitor gives him a knowing smile, asking one final time if he's sure, just as the school bell rings. The trance is broken by the arrival of Mike's daughter, Maggie, and her friends. When Mike turns back to the trophy case, the janitor has vanished into thin air. Desperate to cling to any shred of fatherly connection, Mike announces he's taking Maggie and her brother, Alex, out for ice cream, effectively hijacking their afternoon. The treat turns out to be a disaster. Mike drags two cynical teenagers to a bright, whimsical parlor clearly designed for toddlers. The silence at the table is deafening. Mike, what's the matter, Maggie? This used to be your favorite place. We used to come here for your birthday. Maggie, yeah, when I was like 8. It's a painful snapshot of Mike's predicament. He is a man trapped in the past, trying to connect with children who have long since grown up, while he remains stuck in the memories of who they, and he, used to be. The disconnect between Mike and his children is a chasm he can't seem to cross. Maggie shuts him out with her earphones, and Alex hides behind his PSP, offering only the bare minimum of conversation. When Mike tries to bond with Alex over basketball, the boy gives a vague, dismissive answer just to end the interrogation, pivotally revealing that Maggie got into Georgetown. Mike reaches out to congratulate her, but the rejection is total. Maggie pretends she can't hear him, even though her headphones aren't even plugged into her device. The silence continues all the way to the drop-off. Mike watches his kids walk into the house without a single goodbye, only to be greeted by a new horror in the yard. Scarlett is feeding his belongings into a wood chipper. As the machine grinds his past to dust, Scarlett explains that she's transforming the property into a showcase for her landscaping business. Mike, desperate to hold on to some sense of ownership, protests that he put work into that yard. Scarlett, however, is quick to ground him in reality. She reminds him that his effort amounted to a half-finished barbecue pit that he abandoned after only 30 minutes of work, a stinging metaphor for a life defined by started projects and unfinished dreams. The argument in the yard turns into a brutal post-mortem of their marriage. Scarlett doesn't just attack his yard work. She attacks his character, reminding him that the half-built barbecue pit led to 2 days of him whining that if he'd gone to college, he'd be the one hiring the help. She brings up the hammock, another abandoned project, as proof that Mike simply stopped trying years ago. The emotional core of their fallout finally surfaces when Scarlett admits she is exhausted by 19 years of his resentment. She's tired of being the scapegoat for his ruined life. In a moment of raw honesty that he immediately regrets, Mike mutters, "I never asked you to marry me." The air goes cold. "Yeah," Scarlett replies sharply, "but I did." She tells him that the divorce means they are finally done holding each other back, a sentiment reinforced by her friend Naomi, who arrives and immediately begins chirping about Scarlett getting back on the market. After a brief, icy exchange with Naomi. Mike is left standing in the driveway as his family retreats into the house, closing the door on him for good. As if on cue, the sky opens up. Mike drives into a torrential downpour, his depression mirrored by the storm. Inside the car, the electronics begin to fail. The radio dial spins wildly, static filling the cabin until a single, clear voice cuts through the noise. It's the janitor. "You sure about this?" Panicked, Mike crosses a bridge and sees a figure perched precariously on the railing, ready to leap. He screeches to a halt and screams for the man to stop. The figure turns. It is indeed the janitor from the high school. But before Mike can act, a passing truck momentarily obstructs his vision. When the road clears, the railing is empty. The janitor has vanished into the rainy abyss. Peering over the edge of the bridge, Mike sees something that defies the laws of physics. A swirling vortex in the river below, and staring back at him from the center of the whirlpool is his 17-year-old self. Before he can process the sight, he loses his footing and plunges into the churning water. Sometime later, a drenched and shivering Mike stumbles back into Ned's mansion. He makes a beeline for the shower to wash away the river mud, but when he wipes the steam from the mirror, he lets out a blood-curdling shriek. The face looking back isn't the tired, middle-aged man who went to work that morning. It's the vibrant, teenage Mike O'Donnell from 1989. The scream jolts Ned awake in his high-tech Star Wars bed. Convinced a burglar has broken in, Ned grabs a Spartan helmet and a massive battle axe from his collection and charges into the bathroom. A chaotic scuffle breaks out as Ned swings his weaponry with more enthusiasm than skill. Despite the absurdity of the situation, Mike realizes his new body is incredible. He is faster, stronger, and more agile than he's been in decades. As he effortlessly dodges Ned's strikes and pins his old friend down, he can't help but marvel at the physical sensation. Mike, oh wow, I feel great. Even in the middle of a life-or-death misunderstanding with a billionaire in a helmet, Mike can't hide his exhilaration. The do-over wasn't just a metaphor. He's actually back. The confrontation escalates into an absurd duel with lightsabers. As they clash, Mike tries to prove his identity by shouting intimate secrets that only his best friend would know, including a specific medical condition regarding an unascended testicle. Ned remains unconvinced, dismissing the info as something a dedicated internet stalker could have easily unearthed. Mike eventually gains the upper hand, but Ned uses a dirty trick. He fakes a surrender, only to deliver a swift kick to Mike's teenage groin the second his guard drops. Just as Ned is about to finish the intruder off by smashing a picture frame over his head, he freezes. He looks at the photo in the frame, the 1989 graduation picture of him and Mike, and realizes the boy on the floor is a perfect match. Later, Ned attempts to process the phenomenon through the lens of his vast pop culture obsession. He grills Mike on his potential supernatural origins. Ned, are you now, or have you ever been, a Norse god, a vampire, or a time-traveling cyborg? Mike, I've known you since, first grade? I think maybe I would have told you. Ned isn't so sure, noting that a vampire would be too secretive to tell and a cyborg might not even be aware of its own programming. After ruling out gamma radiation, Ned concludes that Mike has been blessed, or cursed, with a mystical do-over. Ned remains unconvinced by Mike's denials, pointing out that a vampire would naturally be secretive and a cyborg might not even be aware of its own programming. He continues the scientific interrogation, asking if Mike was hit by gamma rays or any other form of radiation. When Mike tells him to shut up, Ned finally reaches his verdict. This is spirit guide transformation magic. He explains to a bewildered Mike that a mystical entity has likely intervened to help him fix his life. When Mike asks for specifics on what his mission actually is, Ned reminds him that he's just the friend, not the one in charge of the cosmic plan. Mike suddenly remembers the mysterious old man at the school and the bridge. Realizing the janitor is his spirit guide, Mike, still swimming in his middle-aged counterpart's muddy, oversized suit, sprints back to Hayden High. He frantically grills the students about the old man's whereabouts, but his search hits a dead end when he finds the official school janitor. She informs him that she is the only person on the custodial staff, confirming that the man who changed Mike's life wasn't an employee, but something far more supernatural. Mike describes the mysterious white-haired man to the school's actual janitor, but she dismisses him instantly, pointing out that the photo he's waving around is decades old. As she walks off, Mike spots his son, Alex, in the hallway. He tries to call out, but Alex, terrified of the strange teenager in the oversized, muddy suit, bolts in the opposite direction. The atmosphere shifts as the hallway lights begin to flicker ominously. Mike notices a trail of water on the floor, leading him to a lone mop and bucket sitting outside the gym. Peeking inside at the pristine basketball court, the mission finally clicks. He rushes back to Ned's mansion with a plan. He's re-enrolling in high school. Ned, however, isn't buying the magical destiny angle. He scoffs at the idea that a cosmic spirit guide would burn high-level magic just so Mike could fix his jump shot or relive his glory days. More importantly, Ned has zero interest in returning to the scene of the crime. For a billionaire who spent his teenage years being stuffed into lockers, the halls of Hayden High represent a nightmare he has no intention of revisiting, regardless of Mike's second chance. For Ned, Hayden High wasn't a school, it was a torture chamber. He dramatically vows to never, ever set foot in that godforsaken place again, screaming his refusal to revisit the site of his teenage misery. Despite his screaming protest, the very next moment finds Ned standing in the school lobby, dressed to the nines and playing the role of Mike's wealthy father. As they wait for their appointment, Ned side-eyes Mike's new wardrobe. Mike, clinging to his outdated 2000s-era pop culture references, confidently explains he is channeling Kevin Federline. When a nervous Mike asks if their forged enrollment papers will actually pass for legit, Ned scoffs. He reminds Mike that he's a tech titan who built his empire on irony. He invented the software that stops music piracy and the software that enables it. Faking a few school records is light work for a man of his digital caliber. The plan hits a sudden speed bump the moment they enter the office of Principal Jane Masterson. Ned, prepared to be dismissive and authoritative, is instantly floored by Jane's beauty and the sound of her voice. The billionaire genius is rendered completely speechless, leaving the father-son act hanging by a very thin, very starstruck thread. The moment Ned lays eyes on Principal Jane Masterson, his brain short-circuits. Instead of seeing a school administrator, he begins envisioning her as an ethereal elven queen straight out of The Lord of the Rings. Attempting to work his magic, Ned launches into the most painfully awkward flirting ever recorded in a principal's office. Mike tries to keep things professional by introducing himself as Mark, but Ned immediately derails the conversation to highlight his own eligibility. Ned, before we get started, I think you should know that Mark's a bastard. Jane, excuse me. Ned, I had him out of wedlock. So I'm single, and I'm very rich. Despite the cringeworthy sales pitch, Jane is genuinely impressed by Mark's fabricated transcripts and officially admits him to Hayden High. Ned, unable to quit while he's ahead, takes the awkwardness to a nuclear level by asking if he can smell her hair. Sensing a restraining order in their near future, Mike quickly drags Ned out, while Jane firmly informs them that she doesn't date the parents of her students. As they walk through the halls, Mike's K-Fed attire draws stares of pure confusion from the actual teenagers of 2009. However, Ned, now fueled by a desperate crush on the principal, is suddenly 100% committed to the mission. He decides his first order of business is a total wardrobe overhaul for Mike. Ned, the least I can do is make sure my fake son doesn't look like a total douche. Mike, I don't look like a douche. The transformation is complete. The K-Fed disaster is gone, replaced by a high-end makeover courtesy of Ned's billions. Mike pulls up to Hayden High in a shimmering Ferrari, looking every bit the movie star. The shift in status is instantaneous. Maggie's friends are swooning, and the student body is buzzing about the new kid. However, Mike's 37-year-old responsibilities haven't vanished just because his wrinkles have. While navigating the crowded hallways, Mike gets a high-stakes call. He's currently missing his own divorce hearing. With Scarlett and the judge listening on speakerphone, Mike panics and spins a wild lie about being on a business trip in Peru. The lie falls apart immediately. In the background, the Hayden High cheerleaders let out a thunderous "Go Knights" chant. Scarlett is baffled and furious, but Mike, spotting Maggie walking into her classroom, implores Scarlett to postpone the hearing. He cryptically tells her he's closer to the kids than she knows, leaving her to deal with the legal fallout while he tries to play cool classmate. When Mike enthusiastically waves at Maggie, she is understandably creeped out. To her, he's just a handsome, overeager stranger. Her friends, however, are far more receptive. Maggie, why is the new kid waving at me? Friend, I don't know, but if that boy were an apple, he'd be delicious. The do-over truly hits home during gym class. Mike stepped onto the court expecting the sluggishness of a middle-aged man, but instead, he finds he's a physical powerhouse. He's faster and more precise than he ever was in 1989. Overcome with the high of his restored youth, Mike turns to his teenage peers and delivers a bizarre, unsolicited PSA about the horrors of aging. He warns them that in a decade, their metabolisms will betray them and they'll all have giant bellies. When he tries to high-five them and go for another round, the teenagers just stare at him like he's a total weirdo. To them, he's the hottest guy in school who talks like someone's grumpy grandfather. Coach Murphy, now nearing retirement, is floored by Mike's talent, calling him a legend and urging him to try out for point guard. Mike excitedly calls Ned to relay the news, but Ned is preoccupied with his own mission. He wants Mike to act out so he can land another parental meeting with Principal Masterson. The mood shifts instantly when Mike finds his son, Alex, duct taped to a toilet in the restroom. Horrified, Mike learns that Alex isn't the star athlete he imagined. Instead, he's the school's favorite target for the basketball team's bullying. Posing as Mark Gold, Ned's son, Mike frees Alex and attempts to build an alliance over lunch, telling Alex they should look out for one another. However, Mike's dad brain nearly blows his cover when he tries to give Alex dating advice. Mike, when I first met your mother, I was so nervous. Alex, wait, you met my mother? Mike, pivoting desperately, what? No, I was asking, is she hot? Alex, dude, what is wrong with you? The real shock comes when the school bully, Stan, enters the cafeteria. Alex reveals that not only does Stan torment him at school, but he recently stuffed Alex into a washing machine at home. When a bewildered Mike asks why Stan was even at their house, Alex drops the bombshell. Stan is dating Maggie. Watching his daughter kiss the school's biggest jerk, Mike realizes his do-over just became a rescue mission for his kids. Mike's transformation from cool teen to protective dad happens in a heartbeat. Watching Stan push Alex around, Mike doesn't respond with a punch. Instead, he delivers a blistering, authoritative lecture on the pathetic nature of bullying. He verbally dismantles Stan's ego before puncturing his jock status by schooling him in a display of elite dribbling that leaves the bully looking like a statue. Back at the mansion, Mike celebrates with a culinary disaster, a sandwich featuring chocolate spread, mayo, pickles, chips, and cheese, proving that while his body is 17, his stress-eating habits are still very much 37. As he eats, the spirit path becomes crystal clear. He isn't here to win a championship. He's here to save his children. Mike heads to his old house and watches Alex from the shadows. To his shock, Alex isn't uncoordinated. He's actually a talented shooter. He realizes Alex's lack of confidence is the only thing keeping him off the team. The mission hits a snag when Scarlett and Naomi arrive. When Alex introduces him as Ned's bastard, Mark, Scarlett freezes.